Have you ever wondered if the stories we're told by the world's most famous victims are actually carefully constructed shields? For years, the world has watched Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, position herself as a symbol of modern empowerment and a survivor of a rigid patriarchal institution. But what happens when that shield is shattered by a single clinical observation from one of the most polarizing minds of our time, Dr. Jordan Peterson? The man known for deconstructing the human psyche with surgical precision has just dropped a metaphorical bomb on the Sussex brand. He isn't just talking about a simple mistake or a PR blunder. He's talking about an archetypal hypocrisy that traces all the way back to the sun-drenched decks of superyachts in Dubai. Peterson claims to have confirmed a dark secret that Meghan thought was buried deep beneath the turquoise waters of the Persian Gulf. This isn't just about gossip. It's about a live psychic autopsy of a persona built on a foundation that might be starting to crumble. To understand why Peterson's claims are so devastating, we have to look back at the summer of 2010. This was a time Meghan Markle has described as a period of continuous hardship. She was a Hollywood hopeful, bouncing between auditions, trying to make ends meet while navigating the shark-infested waters of the entertainment industry. That's the official story. But a growing file of digital traces and insider statements suggests a very different reality was unfolding in the heat of the Gulf. While the world saw a struggling actress elite circles allegedly saw a woman comfortably at home on the golden Mirage, a $50 million floating palace. This wasn't just a vacation, it was a world of private helipads, infinity pools, and ironclad non-disclosure agreements. How does a struggling artist afford a lifestyle where the vintage champagne never stops flowing and the gourmet meals are prepared by world-class chefs? Peterson suggests the answer lies in what was being traded on those decks. What really happens in the world of the super rich when the cameras are off? Those who have operated in these circles call it a symphony of networking. It's an environment of planned informality where a smile or a well-placed conversation can seal billion-dollar real estate deals or energy investments. Rumors suggest Meghan wasn't just a guest on these ships. She was the perfect bridge. Smart, versatile, and incredibly charming, she allegedly acted as the lubricant for high-stakes negotiations between Western splendor and Eastern capital. Peterson's analysis focuses on this pandering characteristic. He argues that her charm wasn't just a personality trait, it was a strategic tool. The dossier includes whispers of themed galas and private dinners where movie funding and energy deals were discussed under the Arabian stars. If these claims are true, it paints a picture of a woman who didn't learn about power. When she met a prince, she had already mastered it years before in the world of super yachts and free cash. But here is where the story takes a darker, more philosophical turn. Dubai is a marvel of engineering, but it is also a hub of unchecked wealth run by a system that is by any standard deeply patriarchal. This creates a massive conflict for the brand Meghan has built today. How can a woman who calls herself a global feminist and speaks out against the structural restrictions of the British monarchy reconcile that with spending weeks catering to the whims of Middle Eastern business moguls? Peterson points out that this selective fury is the heart of the problem. She has plenty to say about the labels used to limit women in the West, yet she was supposedly a willing and paid participant in a culture where women's empowerment is often an afterthought. This isn't just a contradiction. Peterson calls it a betrayal of the soul. It suggests that the victim archetype is being used as a weapon of convenience, while the actual ideals of the movement are ignored when they interfere with the pursuit of wealth. Jordan Peterson often references Carl Jung's concept of the shadow, the hidden, unacknowledged parts of our personality. He argues that when someone refuses to integrate their shadow, they project it onto others. In this case, the theory is that Meghan's intense condemnation of the patriarchal royal family is actually a projection of her own history within truly patriarchal systems. In her podcast Archetypes, she speaks about the labels that hold women back. Yet the accusations surfacing now suggest she used those very systems to climb the social ladder. Peterson claims this creates cognitive dissonance, a mental state that isn't sustainable. He compares it to the false prophet archetype, someone who preaches righteousness while secretly indulging in everything they condemn. The power of this persona comes from manipulating the moral emotions of the public, but Peterson warns that when the foundation is built on a lie, the collapse is inevitable. The Dubai trip wasn't an isolated event. It was a single thread in a massive web of elite connections that spans from Hollywood to London. To truly grasp the scale of what Peterson is exposing, we have to look at the facilitators. Figures like Marcus Anderson and the exclusive Soho House network are often cited as the connective tissue between ambitious talent and the world's most powerful men. The dossier suggests a loop of elite travel, including Mediterranean trips where Meghan supposedly interacted with European magnates. These rumors even touch on figures like Joe Lowe, the financier at the center of the multi-billion-dollar 1MDB scandal. Critics argue that Meghan's rise from a short public CV to private jets and five-star global travel wasn't a silly coincidence. Peterson suggests these agreements turn individuals into puppets of money, creating a cycle of loyalty that eventually demands a high price. Perhaps the most bloody revealing piece of evidence, as Peterson might say, involves the infamous chopard earrings. Given as a wedding gift by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Meghan wore them to a formal dinner just weeks after the world was rocked by the news of Jamal Khashoggi's tragic end. To the average viewer, they were just jewelry. To strategic analysts, they were a signal. Peterson and other critics argue this wasn't a diplomatic mistake. It was a display of loyalty to prior sponsors. In the world of high-stakes influence, expensive gifts often act as retainers, ensuring the recipient remains devoted and available. This network of influence completely recontextualizes her relationship with Prince Harry. It suggests that the skills needed to win over a prince, reading a room-winning favor, and charming powerful men were honed not on film sets, but on the decks of superyachts. If there's nothing to hide, why are the traces disappearing? Online investigators and users on platforms like X have pointed out a strange phenomenon. Photos of Meghan in Dubai and the Mediterranean from that specific 2010 to 2012 era seem to be vanishing from the internet. Public requests for her to comment on her yachting days are met with silence or swift legal pushback. Reddit threads like "From Yacht Parties to Buckingham Gates" have become hubs for these weaponized histories. While many of these claims remain untested in a court of law, Peterson argues that the reaction to the rumors is just as telling as the rumors themselves. The effort to maintain a pristine victim image requires the total erasure of any participant history. But in the digital age, whispers have a way of becoming roars. Ultimately, Jordan Peterson's critique isn't just a personal attack on a duchess, it's a warning to a society that values performative virtue over genuine integrity. He views Meghan's journey as a modern-day cautionary tale, an Icarus who flew too close to the sun of fame on wings, held together by the wax of hypocrisy. He frames his revelation not with malice, but with the clinical worry of a physician diagnosing a terminal illness in the culture. If the person who stands as the face of progressive feminism is perceived to have built her platform with the help of the very patriarchal billionaires she now condemns, what does that do to public trust? It creates a deep cynicism, especially among young women who are taught that empowerment is a brand you buy rather than a character you build. But the story doesn't end with the vanishing wakes of the superyachts. Peterson argues that the behavior patterns established during those Dubai summers didn't disappear when Meghan walked down the aisle at St. George's Chapel. Instead, they were refined and rebranded. If you look closely at the Archetypal blueprint, you see the same symphony of networking that once played out on the Golden Mirage. The dossier suggests that many of the high-level donors and connections fueling the Sussexes' post-royal life are the same type of power players Meghan supposedly met in the Gulf. This is what Peterson calls the charity soft sell. It's the art of using a philanthropic mission like female empowerment or mental health as a gateway to access the world's most exclusive capital. On the yacht, it was about energy deals. In Montecito, it's about media contracts and foundation funding. The medium changed, but the tactic of using charm to bridge the gap between Western values and elite money remained exactly the same. As we moved into the early months of 2026, the whispers that Meghan thought she had buried finally hit the mainstream in a way that no PR team could contain. It happened in the most unlikely of places, a quiet moment on a podcast that reaches millions. When Joe Rogan brought up the Yacht Girl rumors during a high-stakes interview in January 2026, the internet didn't just notice it exploded. Rogan's casual mention of speculation about Epstein's yacht acted like a bomb in the middle of a carefully managed brand. For years, the mainstream media had treated these theories as fringe conspiracy talk. But when the world's most influential podcaster asks the question out loud, the fringe becomes the focus. Peterson notes that this is the moment when the shadow finally overtakes the persona. Meghan, who had weathered tabloid attacks and family feuds, suddenly found herself facing the one thing she couldn't sue into silence, a global conversation about her pre-royal associations that was no longer confined to the dark corners of Reddit. Simultaneously, a massive 8-year investigation by the independent outlet House and Habit has begun to release what insiders are calling the Yacht Dossier. This isn't just a collection of rumors. It's a digital map of timelines, passenger manifests, and flight records that supposedly place Meghan in the proximity of some of the world's most problematic power brokers. The investigation alleges that Meghan's transition from a struggling actress to a global influencer was aided by a network of fixers who specialized in placing ambitious talent on the guest lists of the world's most powerful men. Peterson argues that this is the ultimate credibility stress test. If the House and Habit findings can prove that her lifestyle in 2011 was funded by the very patriarchal excess she now condemns, the Sussex brand doesn't just lose its shine, it loses its moral authority. It suggests that her entire public life has been a performative rescue of a reputation that was compromised long before she met Harry. Perhaps the most shocking element of the 2026 reckoning is the resurfacing of claims made by legal teams involved in the Jeffrey Epstein cases. While the internet has often tried to link Meghan directly to Epstein's orbit through misidentified photos, the reality might be more subtle and more damaging. Legal filings have quoted attorneys like David Boies, suggesting that Meghan was a close associate of Prince Andrew long before she joined the family. This raises a terrifying question for the Sussexes. If she was already moving in Andrew's social circles in the early 2000s, how much did she really know about the shady dealings she now claims to be a victim of? Peterson frames this as the insider-outsider paradox. She presents herself as the outsider who was blindsided by the monarchy's dark secrets. Yet the evidence suggests she was an insider in the very social circles where those secrets were common knowledge. This isn't just a PR problem, it's a psychological fragmentation that threatens to tear her public image apart. When you look at the clash between Meghan and the firm, it's often framed as a clash of cultures, American versus British modern versus traditional. But Peterson suggests it was actually a clash of archetypes. On one side, you have the institutional archetype, the monarchy, which values duty silence and the preservation of the system above the individual. On the other side, you have the transactional archetype, a world where everything including loyalty and virtue is a currency. The alleged yachting history represents the ultimate transactional world. In that world, you survive by being whatever the person across from you needs you to be. You learn to read power, to flatter it, and to profit from it. When this archetype entered the palace, the friction was inevitable. The monarchy couldn't control a personality that had spent a decade mastering the art of the transactional game. This is why Peterson argues the fallout was so explosive. It wasn't about racism or meanness. It was about the system recognizing a predator in its midst. We also have to return to the Chopard earrings because in 2026, new details about the registry of gifts have surfaced. While the public was told these were borrowed insiders, now suggests there was an internal panic at Kensington Palace when the earrings were identified. The staff supposedly realized that Meghan wasn't just wearing jewelry, she was wearing a receipt of a previous association. Peterson uses this to illustrate his point about unspoken retainers. In the world of Middle Eastern power, a gift like that isn't just a wedding present, it's a reminder of a debt. The fact that she wore them just days after the world learned of the tragic end of a prominent journalist isn't just a diplomatic blunder. It's a sign of which side of the power dynamic she truly belongs to. It reinforces the idea that her loyalties aren't to the progressive values she preaches, but to the sponsors who helped her reach the heights of global fame. As the dossier nears its final release, and Peterson's psychic autopsy gains more evidence, we are witnessing the final fall of the curtain. For years, the Sussex brand has relied on narrative control, the ability to sue silence and spin every story into a tale of victimization. But as the 2026 data leak shows, the internet is no longer playing by those rules. The Dubai secret is out, the House and Habit investigation is mapping the connections, and the world is starting to see the Duchess not as a victim, but as a shrewd operator who outplayed the system. Peterson's conclusion is a chilling one. He believes that when the facade finally falls, there will be nothing left but the shadow. He argues that because Meghan has never integrated her true history, The yachting years, the transactional networking, the elite facilitators, she has no solid ground to stand on. When the public stops believing the victim story, the brand collapses instantly. We are watching a modern-day tragedy of Icarus, where the wax isn't just melting, it's being exposed to the harsh clinical light of truth. How does it feel to live in an era where the world's most powerful symbols can be dismantled by a few flight records and a psychological diagnosis? The tale of the Duchess and the Desert Princes is no longer just a royal drama. It's a warning to anyone who thinks they can build a future on a foundation of convenient silence. The truth doesn't just come out, it demands a reckoning. What are your thoughts on this 2026 reckoning? Do you believe the House and Habit dossier will be the final blow to the Sussex brand, or will they find a way to spin this too? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and if you found this deep dive bloody revealing, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for our next update on the untold stories of the royal family. Goodbye for now.